Hello, this is Johanna, and today I am coming to you from our uncertain future to talk about our compost toilet. So, I'm going to try to do a little off the cuff kind of thing, like our podcast, off the grid and off the cuff. Do a little unscripted, fun, unedited video potentially. We'll see how it goes. But I thought I'd talk about the compost toilet because that seems to be the thing that people are most intrigued about or have the most reaction or opinion about. Whether it's like, oh wow, that's really cool, or some people think it's really gross, anywhere in between on that spectrum. Um, and we have a SunMar toilet, so it's really an opportunity to review the SunMar toilet. We've had we've been to different houses with all kinds of setups. So we've been to people's houses where they just have a bucket with a toilet lid on it, and they do a really simple humanure kind of situation, DIY compost toilet. And we've also been to people's houses where they've kind of built up more of a toilet situation for their compost toilet. Sometimes the compost is on another level where they stir it from underneath. There's all different kinds of compost toilet situations. As I said, we went with the more conventional route of buying a SunMar toilet. Okay, so this is our SunMar toilet. And as you could see, we needed to put it up on a platform for plumbing reasons. So these SunMar toilets have a drain that goes outside for urine. So they don't separate the urine from the poop like some compost toilets do. It drains the urine out. And that was mainly because we didn't want the extra work of emptying out our urine every day or two. So that's why it's lifted. And then you also have to step up another step onto the toilet because the bottom part is where the compost sits. And I could show you more of that. And the middle part is the drum that the waste goes into. So really, we probably need to put a railing up here on the wall for somebody who might have mobility issues because it is a bit of a climb up to the royal throne. But yeah, so here's the toilet, and it looks like a normal toilet, kind of. It has a vent that goes out the roof as well. And that's it as far as venting goes, because everything else is contained in the toilet until we empty it. You use it just like you normally would any other toilet. You come and you lift the lid. And as you can see, there's like a black hole there. So I don't normally recommend looking into it. Honestly, it's not that gross. But it's, like you avoid looking in a pit toilet. I mean, there's stuff in there, but so you don't, necessarily want to look at it. But you can. It's not like gross. Part of the reasons it's not gross is because we turn it. So I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. Basically, you use the toilet like you normally would, and you throw the toilet paper in the hole, just like you would with a normal toilet, right? If you go number 2, then you go into this bucket here. You scoop out some of this compost mixture. So this mixture is from SunMar. And at one point, we tried to create our own compost mixture to save money and plastic, because they come in plastic bags that we reuse now. But we were never successful in getting it the right mixture. And then you just throw it in there. So if you poop, you add a scoop. Yeah, we were never quite successful enough to figure out the perfect amount of compost to keep it from being too soupy or too dry. So we just buy from SunMar, and that's been great. I did write a blog post about this a while back that I can link to. And that was at the very start. We hadn't quite had things figured out yet. And I was kind of talking about a lot of the difficulties we had with the toilet. And it did take us some time to dial it in. There was some point where it was leaking urine out the bottom, and that was pretty gross. And we had to figure out that you have to keep the filter in the back clean. I'll get into that more in a second. There's also directions here on the toilet. So when we have a house sitter or guest, they can read the directions if they're going to be here long term and they want to know how to use it. We also have the guidebook over there. But basically on the daily, that's what you do. You use the bathroom, you throw the paper in there, and you add the compost if you have to poop. Every 2 days, you have to turn the barrel. So there's a barrel in here that holds the compost. And just like with any other compost, you have to mix in the dry and the wet. And the wet we provide ourselves, right, from our waste. And then you need to keep it circulating and rotated. So what you do, I will close the lid for this. So you pull out the handle and you turn it. So I think I figured out that 6 turns will bring it back to the open part of the barrel. There's only that one open window that you can use to go to the bathroom. So 1, 2, 3, 4. You can kind of hear the compost spinning. 5, 6, potentially that's going to be it. No, looks like we got to turn it one more time. 7. And that brings us back to the hole. So you just do that every couple of days. You add this mixture. This is the Compost Quick. You spray in there with it. Do it 2 or 3 or 4 times. Kind of like helps keep the microbes going and keeps it clean. And then the microbe mix also you put in there pretty frequently as well to keep it composting. So those are just the different things that you use. When you clean the liner, you use that spray to clean it. And the spray also helps to keep things from sticking, like toilet paper sticking to it. Then, we're a family of 3. We're using this toilet pretty regularly. So when the toilet starts to kind of get full, and it doesn't mean it's like gross and overflowing. It just means that it is time to change it. So it's like pretty much once a week in our household. If you had less people, it would be less time. And you just take this step off, and underneath the step is a drawer. And you pull that drawer out. I'm not going to do that for you. And you empty out the compost from the last week that's been sitting in there. Then you rotate the barrel in the opposite direction and release it into the drawer. That empties the barrel, and you refill the drawer, and the drawer then sits until the next time you empty it. So emptying it is probably the most challenging part of the whole thing. It's the most unpleasant part. You really have to keep that area clean underneath. As I said, if you don't, you risk urine coming out or getting clogged. So We have a compost pile in the backyard where we empty that stuff into, but you could also just put it in landscaping. You wouldn't want to use it for food, but you could use it for landscaping. Yeah, so we empty it outside into a compost pile. And that's pretty much it for the maintenance. And the other awesome thing about the compost toilet is that in this pipe, there is a fan and it runs on DC on our batteries. And the fan makes it so that the toilet never stinks. And that was a big thing for me when considering getting a compost toilet because I had been to people's houses where they were really stinky. And that's like, maybe it's downstairs in their basement, they don't care or whatever. You know, to each their own, it's fine. But for me, I really didn't want it to stink. Our bathroom's pretty much central in our house, next to the kitchen, right? This fan completely prevents it from stinking. Like literally it stinks less than a regular toilet. I'm not gonna lie. You know when you use a regular toilet and after you're done the whole room smells because you just, you know. Because of our fan, the smell goes up the pipe. It never stays in the room. So you could come over to my house, use the bathroom, and leave the bathroom, and I would never know what you did in there. That's how cool it is. Other advantages of a compost toilet are that you're not pooping in fresh water. So people think it's really strange or extraordinary to have a compost toilet. But what I think is really strange is pooping in fresh water. I think that's a really, actually, very strange thing that we do as humans. A lot of people out where we live have chosen to do fresh water. Some people, like in Earthships, they'll use gray water from the sink or laundry to go into their toilet, so they're not going to the bathroom in the fresh water. People can use low water toilets, so they're not using a lot of water. But a lot of people out here have actually chosen to use flush toilets because compost toilets can be a lot of maintenance, and it took us a long time to figure it out. Or people have outhouses, and we have an outhouse as well. That's our sort of second bathroom that we use in case somebody's in the bathroom. There's another one that you can use, so it's not an emergency. And yeah, we really did it because we didn't quite have enough land to do a septic system. If we did have enough land, would we have made another choice? I'm not sure. I can't say for sure. But now that we have a compost toilet, it feels like the right thing. Would I do it again? Again, I'm not sure. Maybe a gray water toilet I would choose just because it is nice to just have it kind of washed away and not have to deal with your own crap. But dealing with our crap does keep us connected to the reality of being an animal on this earth. And instead of just sending it away and putting chemicals in it and utilizing our fresh watershed, we're actually creating something good that can be used to fertilize the land. And that's really the way it should be. If you think about it with fecal matter, a lot of times we use for herbivores, we use their manure for compost. And that just makes sense. It's just more sustainable, and it's actually even regenerative because we're able to repurpose it for growing more things. So we haven't used it for landscaping quite yet. We're not quite there yet. Maybe in the future when we get better at it. It's sort of a work in progress. But still, we're not creating waste. We're just creating more dirt, really. So dust to dust. We're not polluting the water, and we live in the desert, and there's just not a lot of water out here, and that's just the reality of it. We're catching every raindrop we can, so to poop in it just seems really silly to us. We feel good about composting. I know our daughter has said that it's a little embarrassing for her to have friends over. She doesn't tell her friends that she has a compost toilet. But I don't know if that's just like a teenager thing because I feel like kids that live around here are pretty rustic. They're either outdoorsy or they go like hunting and fishing or they are hippie, have hippie parents. So it's I bet everyone's used an outhouse. Every kid in this town has used an outhouse at least once in their life, and this is like an upscale outhouse. So I understand where she's coming from. I get that because it's weird. And there is a pile of poop in our house. I mean, you can't smell it, you can't see it, you could ignore it, but it's there. And sometimes being an environmentalist is kind of messy and weird and not like so cool. Like, it's not fancy to be an environmentalist sometimes, you know? So, if you are interested in a SunMar toilet, I do recommend it. It does take a while to get used to it and figure out the glitches. And for us, it seems like using their products have been necessary for us, but other people might maybe not. You could figure it out. Um, and if you're considering doing a compost toilet, even if you do a DIY, of course, you got to buy the Humanure Handbook. I say go for it. Give it a try. You could always change your mind or use an outhouse. But the I've used outhouses living in Alaska. We always had an outhouse and they're okay, but they're really a pain in the butt. I'll say that. They're kind of a pain in the ass. You got to go outside to use the bathroom. So this is like the conveniences of an indoor toilet without the harsh environmental impact. So I do recommend it. And let's take the stigma out of compost toilets. So if you've got one, spread the word, let people know what it's like. Let's make it so that teenagers everywhere can have a compost toilet without being embarrassed. And I think that's part of our goal, communicating about our off-grid lifestyle, is to try to normalize it. And I know there's a lot of people out there who have an off-grid lifestyle. So let's share it. Let's let people know that it's just another way to be, and there's nothing wrong with it. And it doesn't have to be weird, or it can be weird if you like being weird, like I do. Either way. So if you have any questions about compost toilets, let me know. Eric also knows a lot more about it than I do. So that was a really general idea about what goes into it, but we'll get back to you.